Hey, hello everyone. It is Suzanne and Kim back with another episode of Energy Unleashed podcast.
Hey, everybody.
All righty. I am so kind of excited to talk about this because it's been pretty prevalent and I don't think it's going to get any less prevalent. And that is about people dying and leaving this planet and how people are reacting to it. And it's funny because I've done this work for a really long time and been in death and dying and, Mortician's daughter, being around the whole process my entire life. And I'm watching, especially since my hospice days, I'm watching people leave the planet faster. And I'm wondering, what do you think that's about, Kim? Any thought?
You know, I, okay, so in my personal situation, I feel like my parents have been going through a lot with all of their friends leaving, family, some family, different things that it's hard to watch them just funeral to funeral to funeral right now. Like
Right.
it's so, and it's the age I'm sure that I'm at that they went through that with their parents, I would
Right.
guess. But this seems different. And that's why I'm glad you're going to bring this up today because I don't understand what it means people are leaving faster or, like more people are leaving. What is that? What is
Yeah.
that?
And again, take what resonates here because I'm not the wherewithal, understanding this, but I just draw from my experience. And when I was doing hospice pretty heavily, about what, 10 years ago, when I wrote my Energy Healers Book of Dying portion of my life, I would sit with my hospice patients, and sometimes we would have our so-called client, if you wanted to call them that, you'd be in charge of them, especially if you were the kind that would have conversation and be a companion. I was actually end of life. That was a little bit different. But my sister would have like a hospice client for like sometimes a year or more, right?
Mm,
People are dying really super fast now, and that is actually different. It is not the same. I have girlfriends and clients that are nurses. I have people that work in hospice, and we have these conversations that the hospice time and or the death time is very shortened right now. And I think that that's interesting. Whether or not you want to think that or believe that is here nor there, it's just that's what I observe. Why that's happening, I'm not 100% sure, but from an energetic standpoint, my understanding is our frequency of our planet has changed so much with this ascension process. And we are all supposed to die. That's the one thing we're going to all do. I mean, this has
right.
always astounded me since a child that we don't understand that concept. It's a pretty cut and dry thing that we're all going to leave this planet. But
Mhm.
I think because the frequencies are changing so much, the human that has a contract to leave is shortening that time period of stress, of pain, of suffering. Now, that doesn't mean everyone leaving the planet doesn't suffer, but we're having even really difficult cancer experiences shortened. We're not having, 2 years of it or 10 years of it. We're having like 2 months of it or 2 weeks of it. It's really quite astounding that the time of the experience is changing. And I think this actually has to, in my opinion, come from the higher self or the soul itself,
Mhm.
because we are determining when we leave this planet in our contract before we even come in, our book of life, right?
Mhm.
And I think that the knowledge was there anyway from the very beginning before we even incarnated that said, I'm stepping into an exit plan during the ascension. I am going to come in, live whatever and leave quickly because we don't need to be doing this extended karmic suffering anymore. We're doing so much healing and experiencing in real time in these bodies. And a lot of people are leaving because others in their so-called group are doing such profound healings on their behalf as well. Meaning, if I have a family of abuse and I am going through a really spiritual awakening and I'm doing lots and lots of family lineage line healing, that's allowing my family members to not have that karmic experience any longer either. And I can exit my soul contract. I can leave quicker. I can leave this and not experience more pain, more suffering being involved in that karmic lineage, etc. So there's a lot of elements to why I think that they're leaving earlier. Again, frequency of the planet, not wanting to suffer. not choosing to suffer, the lineage line clearing. And I think we've got stuff to do. We are realizing that we are all fractals of one another and why we have so many fractalized versions of ourselves that are not really, and I'm not judging people's experience or life, don't get me wrong here, but if I'm not fulfilling a whole lot of valid soul contract stuff from this fractal, my higher self is going to take these off and maybe just work with this one so
Mhm.
that I can do some serious work on behalf of this higher self. Are you following that?
Yeah, I think you should go into that a little more though, because
So if this is a visual, this goes down to my experience and my little body is down here. This is called my silver cord. And
mm,
I go up to my, and this is, you can see it like a sunshine. This nucleus here is my higher self. And all of these finger extensions are other versions of me, whether they're past, present, future, or simultaneous. And so when I die, this retracts and becomes one of these, right? And if
mm,
I'm having all these karmic experiences here, or fractal versions of myself, I can get rid of a bunch of those by doing the work in one of them.
okay. All
And
right.
so, we're all fractals of the same stuff. And a lot of us, I don't mean to sound crass or like we're wasting our time, but we are wasting actual resources. We are. We're
Yep.
wasting resources on this planet. And the planet itself is doing its best to stay caught up. But I mean, when we have, 7.9 billion people taking resources that are inefficient anyway, we're not doing a great job. And if we are indeed understanding we're fractals of one another, when somebody leaves, it's a fractal of me in a higher plane anyway, right?
Right. Right. Okay. I'm so distracted right now. You started talking about this subject, and my fan picked up speed and it's clanking like in my room. I think I have to turn it off.
Who is it?
I know, but I'm like, holy bananas, it's going to come off the ceiling. Just did something
That's
weird.
funny.
Yeah. Can you hear it? If you
No, but
can't hear it,
did you feel an energy shift in the room and or a temperature shift?
yeah, it made the hair on the back of my neck go up a little bit. I was like, what
That's
is happening right
awesome.
now? But it picked up speed and it's like clank, 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 clank. I was
That's
like,
really fun.
I don't
You
know.
can turn it off.
Yeah. It's can you hear it on that end?
No,
If you can't hear
no.
it, then I'm not gonna worry about it. I just didn't
Yeah.
want it to interrupt what we're
Maybe
doing.
viewers can, but I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
That's funny
It's
though.
so funny.
I think it's your Auntie Gracie that comes in to bother you once in a while
Probably. She's
when we
like,
talk about
here I
death.
am.
Yeah. Hey. Well, and I
Yeah.
think that,
But so
it's
back on
hard.
the topic, because I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about waves of different types of being that came in different periods of time, it
Hmm.
kind of follows along with probably like baby boomers versus Gen X versus all the like kind of waves of different people that were here to do different things, right?
And then we can talk metaphysically, indigo children, rainbow children, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
That's
changing who's
all.
coming in now and how they're
Yes.
coming in and what they're so if a lot of people in their like 70s to 90s are leaving, I mean, it seems to be in I guess in my parents' world, a lot of their friends and people are leaving quick, they're not suffering as long
Right.
and they're leaving fairly quickly. It's because one, does their body is just really getting pummeled by, I would think, the frequency like you were talking about.
Yeah.
But two, either they did or didn't do what they were here to do, right?
Yep.
Like it's just okay, let's time to go. And if you didn't do what you didn't weren't supposed to do, let's move you up. We're gonna do a little more training. We're gonna do some work, self-work, and like come up with a new plan for you. Like,
And
doesn't that?
remember, we're all part of those plans. We're all
Yeah.
integral. We're all involved with each other. So we're so backwards down here as a human because we're so incredibly selfish when it comes to death. I
Mhm.
don't want my mom to die. I don't want my mom to die because I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss her here. All of that is a very selfish attitude in terms of that being is a fractalized version of your higher essence, and it gets to go and have a reboot. It gets to go and have more experiences. I equated it with my client the other day. That's like telling your kid, you don't get to go to college and have fun. You don't get to go to college and learn new things and get drunk and puke all over the car for the first time. You don't get to, find your first love. You don't get to do any of that because I want you here. I mean, and he's like, oh my God, I never thought of it like that. I mean, that's what that's like. I get to allow my loved one to go because they get to die and have experiences in between worlds or in other incarnations. We just don't get it. It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And we're making it about us, and it's confusing because the mother or the father that's maybe in the death process looks and acts like they don't want to die because we don't know any different.
Hmm.
We're amnesiaed, before we come here, so we don't know we're going back to that experience of full self. But so that can be even more confusing for people that don't study this, like, oh, of course they don't want to die. She said she doesn't want to die. Well, that's her lower self, human self talking, not the higher. So it's important for us to understand that we've got stuff to do in the in between. This is how we ascend our soul and our higher self. And to keep someone from doing that because I'm going to miss them, not that I can keep them here, but I can keep them here with, sadness and tied to them and all of that stuff is not going to help anybody.
No.
It's honoring the fact that they get to go, that they get to go, right?
Hmm.
And I don't mean to make fun, really be clear. I'm never making fun of anything or judging, but I do tell my parents, you're an older model. I'm an older model. You're an older model. Our grandkids compared to me, holy bananas, they are shooting love and light out of their pores just by existing. We had to work really hard to open up and sweat the gunk out of our pores so that we could find some more light. Our parents in their 80s and 90s don't even have the pores to even get the stuff out to get the light in. So they're leaving these planets so that they can come in an incarnation that is pouring through like these grandkids that are actual light babies. That's the point. And that will ascend this planet and human race in a collective way very quickly. We're and it isn't a mass exodus, genocide. Oh my God, you don't want humans on the planet, kind of a utopian, it's dystopian
No.
thing. It's not that. It's about we're all from those same soul groups if we have loved ones. We are all going to see them again because there's a fractal that will always be them somewhere in the ethers, always. And, we'll even see glimmers of my grandpa in my grandkid. Those are all things that happen. So we want to maybe open our heads and our hearts to the process that this is going to go faster.
Hmm.
At the same time, however, what I'm finding in the client is the one that's here is the one that doesn't understand that. Therefore, he or she is very depressed. They're very sad. Everyone's dying. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm just so scared. And then I say, are you scared of your death? Well, yeah, a little bit, but that's not even, I don't think what it is. And then this gentleman was like, I'm just so angry. I'm like, what are you angry about? And he goes, everything. And he said, because I'm seeing everyone go and I'm seeing them hurt and I'm seeing them sick, I'm just so angry. And long story short, what we dug out is he's angry because he doesn't get to do anything about it. Because he was
Mm.
always in his earlier years the helper, the fixer. And again, this correlates. The helper and the fixer doesn't get to do that any longer on this planet. So those that were helping and fixing are also leaving because that's not your purpose. Your purpose is not to fix someone. You can cheerlead and assist them and compassionately hold space for them, but you don't get to take their energy to make them different so that you're more comfortable.
Right. So that lack of control creates a whole vulnerability, right?
And a grief, Kim. What they're
Yeah.
doing and he finally understood. The light bulb went on, and you could literally see it on this guy. It was like, oh my God, the grief is grieving. I don't know who I am anymore when all these people go away,
Mm. Right.
right?
All the relationships. And like I think about even watching my dad because their little coffee group on Tuesdays and
Yep.
Thursdays is dwindling. Like, what happens when they're all gone? Like, is there new
That's
people
that's
that come in, or who am
yep.
I? Like, that's
That's what he
exactly.
said. He said
Yeah.
my group was down to four the other day for this gathering up north, and he said we were all staring at each other like, what? It used to be like 50. That's like going to your class reunion if you're really, really close to everybody and everybody's gone and you're like, well, that was fun. It's very much about understanding, A, this is a natural process, honoring the process, but B, figuring out that you're still on this planet for whatever your soul purpose is doing. So figure that out before you
Mm.
leave your earth body, because that will make your death experience much easier.
Yeah. Do you think that some people I it's harder for I think the older generation because they weren't necessarily part of that awakening or understanding. They were more, a lot of people were really heavily involved in different types of religion. So those are where the beliefs still sit.
Dogmatically
Um,
led. Yeah.
right. Like it's not a bigger picture than, what their religion base is. But Um, it's so when they're kind of, do you think that they did what they were meant to do? Mostly, like,
Per their contract, per the timeline they're in, yes. I
yes,
would
okay,
assume, unless they are really going out extremely angry and resentful, etc., and that will be a more difficult death because the chakra system has a hard time shutting that stuff down. But
right,
those that are, like my parents, my mom and dad are so cute at 91 and 92 that they're like, if I died tomorrow, I'm fine. I got no regrets. I got not, no big deal. And that is a goal, in my opinion, for every human to do so that your transition is so much easier,
yeah.
right? And it makes your life so much easier,
Yeah, I can see that even with my parents. They don't seem to have fear around
right?
dying.
But they
My
grieve.
mom, though, is carrying worry for everyone else if she,
Oh, okay.
you
And
know what I mean?
what is she worrying about? Do you
Well,
know?
just that they'll be taken care of. Like, that certain people will be taken care of,
Right.
and she's still stuck with that a little bit. So,
And therein lies what this gentleman was having a hard time because the ones he took care of were no longer here. So therefore he felt his purpose was gone.
right.
And that isn't even the case anyway, because he was never really fixing anyone anyway. So worry, and that's something to talk to your mom about too, is worry is not real. It isn't doing anything. It isn't helping anything except exhausting the being that's doing the worrying. And
Right.
so those are really illusions that we fall for really easy because it will feed our ego that I'm doing something.
Hmm.
So, I told this gentleman the best thing you can do, because he used to, make an effort to go and do this and this and this and this. And I'd attend everybody's funeral, even if it was their mom or their grandma or their whatever, just to show them how much I cared. I said, you're at an age where you could sit in a chair and stare at a bird and send them love that way, and it would be stronger than, giving them the card that they probably didn't read. I mean, or they read when they were in shock anyway. I mean, choose the way that you work your energy to the best advantage for everybody, which is being present, not exhausting yourself in old energies of do versus just being present and sending love.
Hmm.
And that was astounding to him because he's still, I don't know, making peace with grieving the human doing machine part of his life.
Right.
So grief is real. Grief is difficult. We are in a process in this hologram of grief beyond measure. And this is really confusing for people because we're grieving timelines.
Hmm.
We're merging timelines. So we're grieving the things my past life did or my future life may do. We are grieving those actual existences and relationships, choices and karma. We're grieving all of that in this experience, which is so hard
Hmm.
to discern, right?
Oh, I woke up kind of sad today. Not sad, like sad, I'm depressed, whatever. It was more of a just emotional. I'm going to say emotional. Like there was just some cute things that made me tear up. There were like, and then I sat outside, it's raining, and I got really emotional. And
Yep.
it's not my stuff because it's out here. Like there's so
And you
much grief around so many different things.
As is the rain. The rain
Yeah,
is crying. The rain is the earth crying also. So you tap into that, which is beautiful. But if
yeah,
you don't discern that, Kim's going to go through her day thinking, wow, shit, what am I so upset about?
right. Like what am I holding?
And then
And
you're going to attach it,
yeah, so it
right?
was, I did a little prayer and
That's awesome,
like a release thing. And then it was like, oh, I feel so much better. But it was bigger than me,
right?
bigger than me. So,
It's so hard for people to understand this collective purging that we're doing. And remember, we're doing it on so many levels. Me as an individual, again, is completely connected to my higher self, all of my past and future lives, simultaneous lives. But beyond that, we keep doing that pattern again and again, all the way up into God source, meaning I'm connected to my lineage, I'm connected to my soul family, I'm connected to my soul pods. So when we're doing these works of clearing, purging, sadness, moving energy, blah blah. We're doing it on all those levels, and that's such an amount of energetic work that we don't even have the capacity to get that in our head unless we really study this stuff, and yet our bodies are going through it. The amount of
you know what? I
stiffness
don't
and
mind my
pain
body
is
going
part of
through
it.
that part of it, but it's the other, like with the frequency changes and all the other, the pain, the physical
Yeah.
pain, along with the emotional pain. And like,
Yep.
just pick one.
Right?
Just
And
pick
and
one.
that's what I was just saying in that we are holding it. And
Yeah.
most of us are holding it in our hips because our hips hold the connection to the earth plane and the humanity and the parenting and the lineage, et cetera, et cetera. So many people that are workers are really struggling. I was with another worker last night and she's like, I can't even frickin' walk. I think I'm 100. I'm like, hey, join the group.
Mhm.
Because we're holding, 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 and to do the best at releasing, releasing like you were doing this morning.
Mhm.
Let your mermaid take over. Let, your tail wiggle the stuff out of your hips and joints. It's creative imagination in that regard and do as much body work, but my God, have some patience and compassion with yourself because it's really
Yeah,
tough right now.
it is
I mean,
tough.
I looked out in my yard and I'm like, oh hell no, I'm not going to go finish that yard work at all because I can't even stand up right now. So it's again like my client going from the human doing machine to being. I'm not going to have to worry about going to finish all of that because I'm going to be aware of my body right now and do some self-healing. It's
Mhm.
choices we're making, but we have never been given permission for these choices,
I know. And you know
right?
what's interesting? My day yesterday, because the weeds have taken over like all of my gardens, right? And it's just driving me crazy. And so I'm like, all right, I'm doing it today. And I got all the stuff out. I'm out there pulling weeds. And a neighbor comes over and sits down and chit chats, brings me some coffee. We chit chat. And then I do a little bit more, and another neighbor came over and wanted to see what we're doing at our deck. And then I do a little bit more, and then a different neighbor came over and was just chit-chatting, sitting on the front patio, blah, 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 blah. And then I went out, did a little more, and then my daughter called, and it was like they're purposely giving me breaks that
Yeah,
I should be taking because I have a bad ankle, my ankle and leg are out of whack. And I was pondering, last night thinking about the date. I'm like, they were purposely shoving breaks, like purposely. So
right?
that every so often I was sitting down, chit-chatting, drinking water, doing what I should be doing, and then I would move on. It was
And
so crazy.
or add this to that, unleash this part of it in that you actually are designed to heal people just by being present with them.
Oh
So
yeah.
really the real
Yeah.
work you were doing was not what you thought you were doing.
Right. It's so mind blowing. But it was so cool to think about the day yesterday. I was like,
Isn't that
wow,
great though?
that is so amazing. Yeah.
I mean, again, we talked about AI and technology recently to us too, and in terms of how it opens up your day. Spiritual communities back when did work just to be.
Yeah.
And we don't understand that's it. So really you were doing more work by being and giving love and light and conversation to somebody than you are pulling a weed because it's just a weed.
Right.
So it's really interesting how we're doing that, but we're going through a transition of grieving a lifestyle. I think this is what's most important when we're losing people. We're going through a transition of a narration and a lifestyle
Mhm.
of I don't have anyone to fix anymore. It's like the mom when her kids all go out of the nest and she has no purpose. Well, the kids were only a part of your purpose from the beginning, and it's almost shame on us that we never evened that out to be a human at the same time, so we don't have to grieve that way. We're
Right.
learning now to balance that differently so that we don't go through these ups and downs of I am connected to what I do versus I am.
Yeah. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, and that grief is really hard. And then really sitting with like this gentleman, I'm like, why does it hurt you so much to see your relative in pain and suffering from their cancer journey? And he goes, well, because it's awful. I just feel so bad for them. And I said, yeah, but you can have compassion for them, but what's really bugging you? He's like, because I just think I'm supposed to fly down there and fix that. And I go, what gives you that right? What gives you that right to even think that way, much less do that? And he's like, huh? And when we walked through that whole thing about honoring someone's contract, honoring the fact that I'm actually conditionalizing my love for you because it's easier to love you when you're healthy than it is to love you when you're sick and dying. And his mind was just like, holy buckets.
Yeah. Right. Gosh, it's just, I think the biggest lesson for me is everyone has a journey
Hmm.
and they have a contract and they're going through what they're going through for whatever reason they're going through it. But to be there as a support of some kind if they need it, that's great.
Hmm.
But to realize that you're not going to fix, like even with my kids in day-to-day life, I'm not going to fix what they have going on. I
No,
may
you
call
never
for
did.
advice,
Yeah.
But before I would have been all over it, let me take care of this. What are you doing? Or, criticizing, judging, whatever. And it's just so much easier to realize it's their journey and
Yeah.
they're going to figure it out, you
And
know?
when we really sit with how deep that goes, Kim, when
Mhm.
we really sit with, let's say, I keep getting in the way of you, doing whatever, and I keep fixing it, and I keep fixing it, and I keep fixing it. Let's say it's financial struggle. I'm just trying to get a tangible here. Maybe I just keep bailing you out, bailing you out, bailing you out. The person never learns the sole purpose of poverty consciousness.
Mm-mm.
If I don't learn the serving poverty consciousness as one of my sole contractual lessons, I'm going to do it somewhere somehow again. And
Mm.
why would you take that and extend that process for that person that you say that you love just because you made it about you?
Right.
It's just
Right.
crazy.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
Plus, it's easier to focus on someone else than yourself. And I know I was doing a lot of that. So,
that's a good point.
yeah. And so when you're realizing that you're losing people around you and people are sick, I can't imagine, at that age or what the man was going through in that his, like you said, his day-to-day purpose, what he thought his purpose was, is dwindling.
Right.
But is that really his purpose? And that's where it gets a little scary when you start to go inward and figure out what does this mean for me? What
And
is,
how do you change your purpose in your 80s? Well, you do.
yeah, right. You
And
do.
it's not even that you change it, you just modify it and or wake up to what your true purpose was anyway. And it wasn't necessarily being, a salesman making $1 million, traveling all over the place, making money and stuff. It was, I get to stare at the birds and be grateful. That's
Mhm.
confusing,
Oh,
right?
yeah. That takes a lot of work because the
Mhm.
beliefs behind all of that are really strong.
Right.
They're embedded in layers.
Yeah. And it even gets harder sometimes when there's a couple, like we are fortunate enough for some odd reason to both have our parents still.
Mhm.
And at my parents' age of 91 and 92, they're like, you used to always go to work, you used to always do the house, and now we're doing nothing and everything's taken care of. And then it's like, oh, where did my husband go? Oh, who are you? You're not my wife. And so they're still learning mechanics of relationships and role playing and purpose also as they age all the way into that extent because it's like, oh, we can just both sit on the couch and just relax. Oh, you can actually just do needlepoint and I don't have to care that I'm watching golf all day. It's weird for even that age to accept the role changes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Role changes. And I'm sorry, but hearing has a lot to do with the way things go at home.
Yeah.
The communication changes because the hearing can be a problem. So,
Literal hearing and the
literally.
perception of hearing can be a really big problem. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's really also critical that we find as, a lot of people are doing this grieving stuff too in retirement ages or whatever. If you're retiring and you're just doing nothing and I'm still busting my ass over here, there's still resentments and things. And again, that's being heard and being validated, being seen. And it's important to go into, do I feel resentful? How do I work that? How do I communicate that? How do I support it from this side? These are all grief processes that we're going through. We're dying every day on this planet in a million different ways. We're dying in belief systems, narratives, old ways that we do things, old structures, dogma. We're dying in every single way because we're changing this so profoundly. But we don't understand that this is grief.
Yeah. Right.
It's really embedded grief. And instead, we will mirror that or transfer that into, oh, the whole world's falling apart, or this sucks, or politics sucks, or we
Yeah. All
transfer
the
it. We
outside.
transfer it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So understand those people that are leaving planet, they're just done with all that stuff. They might not know it in this incarnated body, but their higher self knows that they're not needing to do all of that purging. They're just done. And we need to honor that in terms of going, okay, it's not about me sitting on planet not being able to have lunch with you in your meat and body form. It's about you doing what you chose to do. And I honor that. That's a hard thing, you know?
Oh my gosh. It takes a lot of time and work.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we could really make it harder in terms of age. We always perceive that everyone that's dying is old, and they're not. There are so many people leaving this planet that are super young.
Hmm.
There are so many people that are dying as, young adults, young children, young, 30s and 40s are leaving in droves. And why is that? Same thing. It doesn't matter your soul contract and your lesson plan for being here. Just because I leave at 42 doesn't mean I have a different lesson plan than I do at 91. It's just how I progress through the plan.
Oh yeah. Gosh, it is interesting right now. Very interesting in how um it's an evolution, just like we were talking about in a different podcast of the people are evolving, the technology is evolving, all of it's evolving,
Yes.
based
And
on,
we're the creators of the evolution. What we don't understand is we are the creators of this evolution, and yet those that get frustrated and scared feel like it's happening to them.
yes, they're the victim versus the
Right, the
creator.
co-creator. So if I'm having all these people taken away in my life versus wow, I'm still here and everyone's gone. I was had the fortunate opportunity of hanging with my mom the other day with all of her friends from grade school, and they're all 90, 91 years old, and all the men are gone except my dad. And I said to my dad the other day, how does it feel to be the only guy? And he goes, pretty good. And he's like, nope, I still like being here. So he likes being here still. He
Yeah,
doesn't want to not be here, but he's not obsessively needing to be here either. He's very
right.
neutral. And so I believe that those people in their 80s and 90s that are just neutral, that are just like, you know what? I did enough stuff. I'm just existing and I'm just enjoying being here. I think that energetic is what is a great place to be no matter what age you are. But we
Yeah.
don't seem to get to that until we're 90.
But doesn't that bring a calmness to our overall, like
Yeah,
all of us? It like his calmness and his like where he's at, the what he's bringing, we
right.
benefit from that.
But why do we have to be 90 to get that calmness? The serenity is in there anyway if we stop putting the doing machine on the important for our purpose,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. No, we were trained to be the doers all
Yeah.
the way through.
And it's funny because I watch my dad even now, this old, and I thought he was really weird when I was little when he'd just sit and stare out into nowhere with his little, nightly Manhattan. And I thought he was just boring and weird. And he was really meditative. And I think that that's a lesson for us to go inward. So I'm not judging any of his friends that were no longer here that weren't meditative. That's not what I'm saying. But he did some really inside spiritual work. He did a lot of retreats, he did a lot of prayerful things.
Hmm.
He did do the interconnection work or still does probably in a different way. But whereas I was ignorant as a child and just thought he was boring and weird.
Hmm.
Why are you sitting in the backyard just staring at a cloud? He's
Yeah.
like, because I like to. And I didn't understand. And now it's like, oh my God, he was actually doing spiritual practices all along, which then makes the serenity that we're talking about come from the inside and doesn't fear everything that's happening around him. So it's interesting.
That's so healthy.
Yeah.
So healthy. Oh my goch.
And yet I didn't think of it as that as a kid. I'm like, wow, my dad's really weird because other dads were running around, work, 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 work. So,
I know that's what my dad did.
yeah,
But I have to say that all the time that my dad was such a doer, because he didn't sit still ever, I don't think. He would socially, but he never lost his creative,
yeah,
which I appreciate because I think as a doer for me, I lost a lot of my creative thinking and just my want to be creative, which
yeah.
was really hard to, I'm still working on bringing that back in.
And that's a huge fuel
Mm.
that's so critical to co-creating. And we have allowed that to be stomped on from the bigger picture. And so to reignite that is why it's important to just stare at the bird and really make up in your head that the bird is talking to me because I creatively am engaging. I mean, really silly, playful, childlike things are critical. And we think it's a waste of time.
No, I love that time. Give it,
Yeah.
bring it on.
Right? Bring it on. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's just it's going to be like this for a lot of people. And like you said, I think we're going through a wave. And I don't think that this huge chunk of people needs to leave the planet to make things better. That's not what we're saying in any way, shape, or form.
No,
But those that are choosing to leave quickly and fast are doing it from a higher perspective because they've got stuff to do. And I think that's a beautiful paradigm to get into so that you can open your heart to it instead of be grief filled that they left.
Yeah, and I think for anyone out there that wants to read more about this, they definitely should tap into your book.
Yeah, the Energy Healers Book of Dying is on my website, or you can just Google me and it comes up. But there's a lot of things in there about honoring the soul contract. And this particular gentleman, the soul what? So, to introduce him to even the concept of a soul contract was really fun because then it makes so much more sense. And he said, "This is so simple and easy that we make it really a big deal, don't we?" And I'm like, "Yep, that's what we do."
It just makes so much more sense. Like, thinking that you come down willy-nilly and that fate is just going to bring you what you need.
Yeah,
It's not
right?
going to work. When I
Yeah,
look back at my path, I'm like, obviously, I was led in certain directions at certain points in time in my life.
right.
Wow.
And when you didn't listen, the stick got bigger, right?
Great.
So, yeah. Okay, well, on behalf of Kim and I, hopefully you can take a tidbit from that if you choose to. If not, just toss it. And we're never here to tell you how to believe, but it would behoove you to open your heart to what really maybe is the soul contract and what that's about and why people do the journey the way that they do it, and knowing that you can support them in love and kindness by not doing, but just being. So, on behalf of us, till next time, cosmic hugs.
Goodbye.